This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome everybody to MSE Countdown. This is your host David Rosenberg. I'm here with Chase Sussex. Chase, how's it going?
Yo, how's it going, everybody?
So we're going to do something a little different today with the countdown. Our first story is going to be an actual story, and then stories 2 through 5 are going to be us breaking down each region of the March Madness bracket, since we have that at our disposal. We'll only be covering the men's bracket due to time constraints, and that seems to be the one most people are talking about, unfortunately. If we have time next week, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the women's tournament. But for now, we're going to go through the entire bracket, take you through all of our picks and kind of reason behind it, and we have some interesting ones. So we'll kind of be working through it too on air, so things could change from what we think we're going to pick, but that's pretty much how it's going to go today. But without further ado, let's get the countdown started. Story number 1 today, Mike Trout reportedly agreed to a big contract extension. Isn't that right, Chase?
Yeah, so Mike Trout reportedly penned a big contract with the Angels. He signed reportedly, this isn't confirmed or anything, but the report is the fact that he signed a 12-year, $430 million contract with the Los Angeles Angels, which is crazy big. A lot of people are saying that he's still kind of underpaid in terms of players of his caliber, especially at his age.
Who says he's underpaid?
There's a lot. I've seen some people say he's underpaid because I know $430 million doesn't seem like no one could even seem that would be underpaid, but based on the market, a lot of people are saying $430 million is underpaid for a player of his caliber. But that's the only details we have on the deal as of right now. It hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but there have been a couple sources that have said this is the deal. This is significantly more than what Bryce Harper and Manny Machado made earlier this year, early this year, a couple weeks ago. Bryce Harper signed with the Phillies. He signed a 13-year, $330 million contract with the Philadelphia Phillies, which was before the biggest contract ever signed in MLB history. And he actually passed Manny Machado, who just recently signed a couple weeks before him. He signed with the Padres with a 10-year, $300 million contract, and he is over in San Diego. So some 3 really big contracts there, kind of stacking on top of each other. It was one of those things where the teams were sort of competing for what seemed like the biggest deal in free agency. So that was just definitely a big deal for all 3 teams in the offseason, but the Trout deal is definitely big for the Angels because he's pretty much locked in for the rest of his career. So they have probably one of the best MLB players currently in the league, tied to them for, forever.
Yeah, there's a lot of big contracts being signed lately. And I'm glad you mentioned Machado and you mentioned Harper because, we can kind of compare those. So Machado signed that, what was it? You said 10-year, $300 million, I believe?
Yeah, Machado signed the 10-year, $300 million with the Padres.
Okay, so if we, basic math there, that one's pretty easy. That's about, $30 million a year on average, I'm sure. Certain years a little lower, certain years a little higher. I think it's a little more backloaded. But that's your classic 10-year mega deal. That's the same thing that, guys like Alex Rodriguez and Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera, they've gotten big deals similar to that. And then we had, Bryce Harper breaking that at 330 over, is it 13 years?
Yeah, 13 years.
So that one actually brings down the price, even though it's more money, total contract. It actually brings it down to closer to, I think it's between 25 and 26 million a year. And especially the way the contract works out, it's, he's going to get paid closer to 30 million a year for I think a good 6 or 7 years. Before that number dips down, and it starts pretty low, I think, to kind of help them ease into that cap. So, but then we have the Mike Trout deal, which is interesting because it's $430 million, but that's exactly $100 million over Bryce Harper's deal. And I have to think that was probably used in negotiating. We're giving you $100 million more than Bryce Harper's getting. It's for one less year, so the money's still there. And I think what does this add up to? It's got to be, it's in the 30 million. So it's if my math's right, it's just under 36 million a year. Chase, you could check that for me if you have a
Yeah, that's
calculator.
correct. It's
Okay.
35.8 per year.
All right, cool. So I'm still good at math. But yeah, so that's a huge payday, and I get that the market will change over time. Obviously players are going to keep getting paid more and more. Money means less and less, I guess, as time goes on. But this is still a huge payday. So those people who are saying that he is underpaid by any means, I doubt it. The rules are just kind of different, and this is a really big this is a really big deal. I'm excited that he signed a contract extension, or is reportedly, because we don't have it confirmed yet. But the contract extension thing, loyalty isn't a big thing in professional sports, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean,
not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah,
Back in the day, so we have Derek Jeter. He's played 20-year career all with the Yankees. It's nice that he was with the Yankees because they're perennial winners. But something like that, you don't see that too much. One of the things I was saying is, Mike Trout, no matter what, Los Angeles is always going to consider him the greatest because he stayed. And like LeBron, there's an argument, is LeBron the GOAT? Is Michael Jordan the GOAT? I think more people would be on the LeBron side had he not left Cleveland. Ask people what their issue with LeBron is. Most of the time, it's that he left Cleveland. And that's like a personal thing, that's a personality issue. And to see Trout, I heard some people kind of say, oh, I'm surprised he decided to stay with a 500 team. I thought he would chase rings. You have a guy like Aroldis Chapman who left the Yankees to sign a 1-year deal with the Cubs, got his ring, and then went back to the Yankees for more money and more rings. So
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
so.
it's really refreshing to see Mike Trout, and I think we talked about this a few podcasts ago, but I'm not big on guys getting massive contracts, but if it means paying your guy to keep him there, right? I live in Florida, so one of the big things that happened over the past couple of years is Dwayne Wade didn't get re-signed to the Heat, and then he kind of left, and then he came back. But that was just a big effort. So I'm glad they kind of worked something out to where Mike Trout could get paid this obscene amount of money and be happy with it. And, he would commit to a team that might not exactly be a winner. I'm sure they've promised him that they're going to try, but, he doesn't know for sure about that. So yeah, that's kind of the deal on Mike Trout, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. I'm actually working on an article for our site, Michigan Sports and Entertainment. I'm working on an article about those 3 contracts that you mentioned in specific, so we'll kind of get into that maybe in a week or so when I have more research done on that. But initial thoughts: huge contract, pretty big deal, best player in baseball. I don't think there's really a question about that. So yeah, that's that. Did you hear this is the other baseball news of this segment. Did you hear the news about Michael Fulmer?
Yes, unfortunately for Tigers fans, I heard that Michael Fulmer was recommended for Tommy John surgery, which is a huge blow to the Tigers and Michael Fulmer as well for his career. Once a rookie standout in 2016, I don't really think we'll ever kind of see him pitch at that caliber that we saw back in his rookie season. This Tommy John surgery, again, just caps onto some of the other injuries that Fulmer has dealt with in his career so far with the Tigers, and it just comes at unfortunate timing when he was, getting ready to, he was playing well in spring training, and he was kind of poised to get that opening start, and towards as the regular season inched closer, it was looking more like Zimmerman was going to get the start on opening day, and now we're getting the news that Fulmer is pretty much is almost confirmed to miss the entire season when he gets Tommy John surgery. So, like I said, a massive blow to the Tigers, and probably a pretty big blow to his career as well, because, like I said, you're not going to see him, come back with that kind of resurgence that he did in his rookie year. Just that surgery just messes you up.
I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think that you're right in saying that it is a massive blow for the Tigers this year. I don't think it's a massive blow for Michael Fulmer's career in general. I have a lot to say on this, actually, so I'm going to try to keep it brief because God knows how long it's going to take us to get through this bracket. But the one thing about Tommy John is that it has this big, scary, there's a difference between the denotation and connotation of a word, right? If you're not familiar, denotation is the word definition of Tommy John, and that is the surgery. But the connotation that comes with words is the feeling behind it. And Tommy John, just this name alone, is because his career was whoa, when he got it. It's damning for a lot of guys. People think that, man, there's no coming back from it. But realistically, thanks to the doctor who checked him out, Dr. James Andrews, he's world renowned, famous for performing Tommy John and getting people back to where they need to be. He's had a lot of success. And at this point, I think, and I know for a fact, that there are young pitchers who try to wear out their arm. I played with one in high school. Try to wear out their arm in high school and semi-truthfully joking that, hey, maybe I'll get Tommy John before my first year of college so that I'm all good to go and don't have to have it when I'm in the big leagues. Because at this point, you hear every major pitcher kind of having Tommy John and coming back and being at least close to what they used to be. And, Fulmer wasn't gassing anything up. He was throwing low 90s. We didn't know if we were going to see that mid 90s velocity. So I think that this could actually be good for his career. Give him another year off, or he had a couple months off or whatever it was, and then he'll take this year off and get healthy and get right. And I think that velocity could come back. Maybe not 96, maybe 94, but good pitchers learn how to use breaking balls and things to their advantage to be great. Look at Justin Verlander; his velocity dipped. I know he got some of it back, but he's worked with that slider in the curve, to make his game good. So I don't know if it's a really that big of a blow for Michael Fulmer, but for sure the Tigers are losing their expected ace. The interesting thing here is that Jordan Zimmerman has kind of been in line. If we're counting, every fifth day start, I think he's been in line throughout all of spring training to make that opening day start. So Jordan Zimmerman's going to have to be our ace. I don't know what that means because he's hit or miss, I guess. But if he can be good, maybe the Tigers will have a decent season. I mean, everyone was expecting them to do pretty poorly. It's rebuilding. It just seems like maybe the rebuilding is going to have to go a little bit longer because Fulmer was one of those trade pieces that maybe we could have gotten some good prospects with, but that won't be the case this year. And we can just, only hope as Tigers fans that he gets back to good health. So yeah, that's really the scoop on Michael Fulmer. He is seeking a third opinion, I heard, so he doesn't exactly want to accept this, I feel. He's probably taking this just as rough as many Tigers fans are. But yeah, that's kind of the deal on that. And if we hear, if that third opinion says, no, dude, you're good, it's just those lower body troubles that they took you out for, maybe a miracle will happen, but I wouldn't count on it. So without further ado, you want to lead the stories 2 through 4 and break into this bracket?
Yes, let's break in this bracket. Let the madness begin here. It is March. It is officially the time of the year where people get nothing done at work. The least productive time of the year, which is college basketball March Madness tournament. It's probably one of my favorite times of the year. More exciting than Christmas for me. Well, I'm
Jewish. This is definitely more exciting than Christmas for me.
But I'm a big fan of March Madness. It's always my favorite. Filling out a bracket is probably more exciting to me than running a fantasy football team. As much as I love fantasy football, there's just something about filling out a bracket that's just so exciting. And I love it. I'll do it every year. So
yeah, March is definitely the month for sports geeks to geek out to the max. Find your numbers, find your favorite teams, find your Cinderellas. So I don't think there's a sports fan. I'm not even a big college basketball fan. I know you focus on it more than I do, But like every March, I have to fill out a bracket, and that's when I learn about, who's good and who's going to go to the draft and stuff like that. So this is really fun for me to do with you, because you have a lot of expertise that I necessarily don't have, but and I have other little parts that I know. So you want to just dive right in?
Yeah, let's dive right in. Let's get dancing.
All right,
let's go. All right, so we'll jump into our first matchup. We're going to start in the East Division, which we'll kind of call our second story. We'll kind of dive in and tackle the East. So our first matchup is between the Duke Blue Devils and the play-in winner between the 2-16 seeds. It's looking like NC Central is the current projected team to win, but like I said,
does it really matter? Is Duke going to lose to a 16?
I don't see it happening. We saw the absolute miracle last year. I wouldn't even call it a miracle. I mean, UMBC absolutely blew out Virginia last year in the first round, beat them by 20 points, if I'm not mistaken.
Time, right?
That was the first time ever a 1 seed or a 16 seed had ever beaten a 1 seed. And I just don't see it happening again.
Spoiler alert, we don't have Virginia getting upset like that this year. We actually have them going pretty far.
But yeah, we'll save that for a little bit later once we get to their region. But for right now, it's so hard to pick against Duke. Duke is one of the best teams in basketball right now. Zion Williamson is so hard to pick against. When you're mentioning Duke, you cannot go without mentioning Zion Williamson, probably one of the most electric, if not the most electric current college player in college basketball, projected to be the number 1 overall pick. He definitely won't stay at Duke more than this year. So I think he and other guys like Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett will lead Duke to a deep run in the March Madness tournament. So
yeah, I was going to say Williamson is the big name that everyone knows. He's the second coming of LeBron, whatever you want to call him. But those other two guys that you mentioned, they have a chance to be top 5 picks in the draft. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't get to see much of as good as RJ Barrett is. We got to really see him shine when Zion was out for multiple games with that knee injury. When his shoe broke out of his shoe. We saw that went pretty much viral on social media. But when he was out, RJ Barrett shined in his spot. Duke actually really struggled as a team without Zion, and that's what I'm a little bit worried about Duke later in the tournament, is the fact that if something were to happen to Zion, I feel like Duke takes a significant blow, regardless of how good RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish are. I think Zion is definitely the big difference maker there for the Blue Devils. So as long as Zion's playing, Duke is a pretty heavy favorite for me. And
we'll have plenty of time to keep talking about Duke, because I'm sure they're going to keep coming up within this bracket. So let's go ahead and select them and pencil them in as our first official selection.
All right.
So our next matchup, what do we got?
All right, so our next matchup is an 8 seed and a 9 seed. So these ones can usually go 50-50. So we have the VCU Rams versus Central Florida Knights, or UCF. I know David has a pretty easy opinion here.
For those of you who don't know, I am a student at the University of Central Florida. I am studying journalism there. So I do have a heavy favorite, but I have some. Do you want to make the case for VCU before I go into UCF?
Yeah, I mean, VCU is a really strong basketball program. I mean, they're a really good they rank second in the country in overall defense. They're a really good offensive rebounding team. And they struggle a little bit in the 3-point, and I feel like that might hurt them. But I think overall their defense, will help them in this game. I know UCF is a strong offensive team, so being able to utilize its a strong defense will definitely help VCU in this matchup going forward. But I do kind of like UCF in this matchup over VCU.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick UCF, and that's not really just based on my bias. A couple of things here. I know, the Rams are number 2 in defense, like you said. They're really, really strong. But the Knights are 19th in defense, and I think what gives them the edge there is that 7'6" center, Taco Fall. I'm sure you heard or have seen, clips on him and stuff like that. Just because of his size, he tends to get a lot of publicity. But it really is interesting to see each team try to game plan around Taco, because he's so big. Like, people really don't know what to do with him, and they get in foul trouble because a lot of, most shots just look like you're hacking at him because you can only get up so high on him. So I think Taco is going to be, he's going to get a lot of focus because he's so tall. But I think his play is going to impress a lot of people. And, he's not just, some giant guy on stilts. He's a legitimate basketball player. He still has some things to refine, mechanics. But he's gotten better with each year. And that's something that I think is going to actually, despite what the statistics say, give the defensive edge to UCF. And then on offense, they have B.J. Taylor, who's he's listed at 6'2", but he's probably not 6'2". I would say at best 6'1", probably more like 6 foot. But B.J. Taylor's a really impressive point guard for UCF. He's becoming more of a dual threat. He can dish it and score. He gets to the line like nobody's business. But one of the things that's helped him is Aubrey Dawkins, former Michigan player. He's been an outstanding scorer, and I think of those three that I mentioned from UCF, has a chance to actually go to the NBA next year if he chooses to forego his senior year. And I think as long as Aubrey doesn't go into a little funk like he did, I believe against their last game of the season, I want to say Temple they lost against. Aubrey was kind of in a funk, and he couldn't get out of it, and that kind of limited BJ because they could focus more on BJ Taylor. And I think as long as that tandem is free to do what they want, and the VCU has to focus on Taco Fall, I really do think that UCF are going to be our first upset here. So let's go ahead and select them and move on to the next one. We have number 5 seed in the East, Mississippi State, against Liberty Flames. So what do you think about this one?
As much as I'm kind of a big upset guy, and we're not going to go crazy in this whole bracket thing, but I really do like Mississippi State here over the Flames. I haven't really seen much of Liberty. They haven't really proven much to me. I know that they're a pretty good free throw shooting team. But I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things where Mississippi State just has more. They have more experience in playing some of those top tier games. And I just don't really think Liberty has even really come close to playing anybody of importance so far this season. Winning their conference, championship doesn't really prove them to me at all. So for me, it's hard to pick. It's hard for me to pick Liberty over Mississippi State. So I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here and the number 5 seed over Liberty.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bulldogs too. We're in agreement there. Most of the stats are on the side of Mississippi State, but I think the most concerning, if you're Liberty, is that Liberty is in the bottom 50% of all teams in offensive rebounding. And offensive rebounding isn't always like make or break stat for a college basketball game. It is college basketball after all. But Mississippi State is 18th in the country in offensive rebounding. So where Liberty tends to fail often, Mississippi State knows how to take advantage. And when the thing that you're taking advantage of heavily is second chance points, that leads me to believe Mississippi State is going to have a relatively easy time getting up early on Liberty Flames and kind of holding that lead, despite their nice little run in their championship. So Mississippi State.
All right.
So
our next matchup is between the number 4 seed Virginia Tech Hokies and the 13 seed the St. Louis Billikens. So this is kind of an interesting matchup. I was pretty impressed with St. Louis in their conference tournaments. They played really well. They ended up winning their conference championship. They're really good. They're really strong on offensive rebounds. That second chance points are really heavy for St. Louis. I could see that as a possibility for them to upset Virginia Tech, but I think Virginia Tech is just going to the 3-point game is just so strong with Virginia Tech. It's going to be so hard for St. Louis to defend against that. St. Louis doesn't really excel at defense, and they're really going to have to protect the perimeter. But if you're not careful, Virginia Tech will kill you from the outside, from beyond the arc. So it's tough for me to pick St. Louis here. I kind of want to go with Virginia Tech.
Yeah, no arguments there. From what I've seen, Virginia Tech's 3-point shooting is really strong, like you said. If there is a difference maker in this game, that'll be it. And 3 is better than 2, so I'm really okay with Virginia Tech being picked here. I know we like upsets, both you and I, but this seemed like a pretty tough one to pick.
All right, so we'll go Virginia Tech.
All right.
So this next matchup.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this next matchup's a little bit of an interesting one. So if you want to kind of introduce this one, I'll kind of talk about why it's a little bit interesting.
Yeah, so we have Maryland, and then we have the play-in winner, Belmont versus Temple.
Yes, Belmont
and then
versus
we
Temple.
have. I think we're in agreement here. We spoke a little bit earlier before we started recording, but I think we're in agreement here that it really does depend on who comes out of that game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is an interesting game to watch because especially the playing game, you guys really need to pay attention to those first 4 games. As much as people don't really get excited and don't really pay attention to those first 4 teams who compete to play in the tournament, this is a game that you need to watch because Belmont and Temple are really good basketball teams. I know they're coming in as 11 seeds, and Maryland is a pretty good basketball team, but I do really think that Temple and Belmont do have a pretty good chance to upset Maryland here. I do like Temple over Belmont a little bit more. I know Belmont is projected to beat Temple, but I think in terms of chances to overcome Maryland, I think Temple has a better shot. But I think this could be an interesting matchup. But I think like David was saying, we were kind of in agreement saying if Temple were to move on and play Maryland, we would think that Temple would upset Maryland. But if Belmont does, then Maryland gets the win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I mentioned Temple earlier when I was talking about UCF. They beat UCF. Temple's like one of those surprising teams, right? Like they could easily beat Belmont and upset Maryland, and I don't think anyone would be flabbergasted, we'll say. I think that's a reasonable upset, but with Belmont as the projected winner, because this is a game that we're going to focus on. I think it tips off in about 2 minutes as of recording time. So we should, by the time we put this out tomorrow, we should know who that is. So, if Temple wins, disregard what we said. But we're going to go with Belmont as of now, just because they are the projected winner. Are you in agreement there?
Yeah, so for right now, what we're using right now, we have Belmont projected winner. So based on our projections on that, we have Belmont losing that game, regardless of how well Belmont does shoot. They're top 20 in both shooting accuracy and scoring. But I think that Maryland still has the edge defensively. Maryland has some really good shooters as well. It's a tough division in the Big Ten. I think their record's a little bit misleading. They play in a strong division, so I do like Maryland over Belmont here. If Temple, like we said, if Temple ends up getting in, then it might be a different story. But for right now, we're going to go Maryland.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. What's the next one?
All right, so this is, I think this might have to be our next upset alert here, if we can sound a siren. I really like sound effect. Yeah. So what we can do here, I mean, I really, really like the Yale Bulldogs. They made a really impressive run in their Ivy League championship tournament. I know it's just the Ivy League championship tournament, so it's not really saying much. But I think LSU has struggled heavily over their past couple games. I don't know. Yale's offense has been really, really good this season. And they rank pretty well defensively as well. I don't know. I really like Yale as the upset in this game. LSU is not a very convincing 3 seed to me. I think 3 is very generous for a team like LSU who struggled towards the end of the season. And I think they are very capable of a first round upset or a first round exit for at the hands of the Yale Bulldogs. Pause. Did
you watch any of that Ivy League tournament that was going on?
I watched a little bit, yeah. I mean, and Yale was pretty impressive when I watched it.
So Yale's offense, there's the joke, right? Like the Ivy League guys should be the smartest guys in the room, and they can figure out the right trajectory to throw the ball and make it in every time. But realistically, what I took away from Yale, even though they were playing, a lesser competition than, we'll say, LSU, I think Yale has a very high basketball IQ. They just seem to move, at least on offense, in a way that wasn't just putting up points on, Harvard, etc. It looked like it could put up points on a team like LSU. And about LSU's head coach Will Wade was suspended indefinitely back in early March. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard a little bit about that, and I think I feel like that's probably been a lot of the reason of the struggles for LSU. They've obviously had some some issues there coaching wise, and I think that might lead to their downfall again. I think that's just more signs as to why we should put Yale over in this matchup against LSU.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
like the
With
upside
Will
here.
Wade gone,
Yeah.
there's always something to be said when you're playing without your head coach, and Javonte Smart, one of their star players, he was suspended for one game. He came back and he'll be available for the tournament. But you have to think that dysfunction and early March, it leads to problems down the road. So this upset seems to be kind of backed up off the court and on the court, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So Yale Bulldogs, our first pretty big upset. We had Central Florida over VCU, but this is our first pretty big upset that we've chosen so far. So
That's right.
all
And I'm
right,
happy with it. I like it.
yeah, I like it.
All right, so next we have 7 Louisville against 10 Minnesota. You got an argument for our a Big Ten team?
So I really like Minnesota. It's hard for me to put Minnesota over Louisville in this game because of recent performances. They recently just got blown up by Michigan in the Big Ten tournament.
Yes,
But I
they
really,
did.
but I really do like Minnesota. The 13 loss is a little bit concerning, but I mean Louisville. I just think in terms of strength of schedule, I think Louisville has them beat out a little bit here. But Minnesota does have some impressive players. Jordan Murphy is one of them. Amir Coffey, another great player for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Really electric players there. Some of the best in the Big Ten, I think. And they have the firepower in order to beat Louisville and give them a good run for their money. But like I said, it's come down to strength of schedule. Louisville has played pretty well. They've only had, they're in a tough division. They're in the ACC, they're with the likes of Duke and North Carolina. So they play in a tough division. So I really think in terms of strength of schedule and just the strength of the opponent they've played, I feel like Louisville is more prepped for this game. And I feel like I'm picking Louisville here over the Golden Gophers, but I think it'll be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I like Louisville's defense in this matchup. And I think Minnesota has some strengths, when it comes to handling and getting boards on the offensive side of things. But I don't know that they're strong enough in their strengths to overcome where Louisville's strong, and that's defense. So I think that will be actually kind of a one-sided game. So we're gonna go Louisville.
Yep, we're going Louisville.
Alrighty. So then, what do we have next?
We have the number 2 seed Michigan State Spartans and versus the 15 seed the Bradley Braves. I know that Michigan State is a 2 seed, a little bit infamous. We all remember the MSE State game from a couple years ago, but I don't really think it's going to be a repeat here. I think Michigan State played really strong going to the tournament. They had the complete sweep of Michigan during the regular season, including in the Big Ten championship where they defeated them in the final seconds of that game. Very exciting matchup between those two, but Michigan State has played really strong. Cassius Winston again continues to be one of the best players in college basketball. So I think there's very little conversation here. I don't really think Bradley has any chance against Michigan State, so I'm easily picking the Spartans here.
What are you talking about, man? You don't think the Braves can beat the Spartans?
Not at all. Sorry.
All right,
Sorry,
yeah, I'm on
any
board with
Braves
you.
fans out there, but I like Michigan State in this matchup.
I had to try. I had to at least give Bradley a little bit of credit. That's a cute name, Bradley. So we'll go with the Spartans there. All right. So we
right.
that's our first region. So
Yeah, that completes the Eastern region. We'll now move to the Western region.
Yep.
And so let's introduce this matchup. So again, we have the seed Gonzaga Bulldogs versus the play-in winner, which was actually I think this game was already decided in the first game, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like, if I can find it really quick here.
Yep. Go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think
they did. FDU did win 82-76 over Prairie View.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
fairly.
we do have that
fairly Dixon.
confirmed. FDU's in.
Yes,
in
FDU wins over Prairie View A&M 8-76 in tonight's first 4 matchup.
I
So,
honestly don't even know what FDU is.
It's Fairleigh Dickinson.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure
that's
it
what
is
it
Fairleigh Dickinson.
But anyways, I think again it doesn't really matter from We saw it tonight. I still don't think that gives them much of a chance over Gonzaga in the first round, regardless of how strong Gonzaga's conferences. They're in one of the weakest conferences in college basketball, but still hard for me to have a 16 seed over a 1 here. I think Gonzaga
if you want to talk about
16.
Gonzaga deserving a 1 seed, we could talk about that. But if you want to talk about Gonzaga losing to a 16 seed, no chance. I'm sorry, no.
Yeah.
This one's pretty easy to pick. Those 1 seeds are always pretty safe bets.
Yeah.
So we move on to Syracuse and Baylor, and this one's interesting, right?
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup, but for here, in this particular matchup, I really like Syracuse. Syracuse has always been a really good tournament. They played really well during the regular season. They've got. I feel like they're a really good shooting team. They've got a pretty good defense as well. I know their offensive rebound and second chance points are really good here. They struggle a little bit in the defensive board area, and where Baylor is actually top 4 in offensive rebounding. So, Baylor might get some chance there in terms of second chance shots, and second chance opportunities. But for me, I'm still really liking Syracuse in this matchup. So that's kind of my explanation for it.
I wanted to pick Baylor. And I kind of want to argue with you a little bit. First off, let me say something about the Orange. Their coach, what's his name, Jim Boeheim?
Yeah.
He does something special in March, right? Like, were they a 9 or a 10 a year or two ago, and they made, what'd they make, like an Elite 8? Or they make a Final Four? You remember that?
They were pretty close. Yeah, it was either. I think it was like they made it to a couple years ago.
It was a deep run, and that was with a team kind of similar to this, and there's no reason for me to kind of argue against Syracuse per se, but when you look at Baylor, statistically, they rank a little bit better in points per possession and effective field goal percentage. So the offense, if it gets going, and they're 4th in the nation in offensive rebound. So if that gets going, I think there's a chance we see Baylor make a run. But the other thing that is against Baylor is that defensive-wise, they're not as strong as Syracuse. So I'll concede Syracuse unless I guess I didn't do a really good job of convincing you that Baylor should win, did I?
Well, for right now, we'll go with Syracuse if they're for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think Syracuse is a safe pick. Based on, I have some statistics here. I did a little research, and looking at games in the past where Baylor plays a team of Syracuse's level, and where Syracuse plays a team of Baylor's level, Baylor has the edge slightly. I'd say only about 5% or so, but they do have the edge. So they've won games like this. Can they win it when the stakes are high? I think that's a question we'll have to look to be answered. But yeah, let's go with Syracuse for now because they just seem strong, and Jim Boeheim's just enough to push me over the edge there.
Yeah, it's a good matchup to keep our eyes on.
Absolutely, that is probably.
Week,
I don't think there's another game in this region. Oh, there is another game in this region that I think you should keep an eye on, but that's definitely one of the big ones. So yeah, we have next we have the 5 seed Marquette against the 12 seed Murray State. Any arguments for Murray State here? I feel like Marquette's an easy pick.
Actually, I do have a big argument for Murray State here.
Really?
And that one player is Ja Morant. Probably one of the top NBA prospects going in the NBA, headed into this year. I really like Murray State. I think Murray State is a big candidate here to upset Marquette. Marquette kind of struggled towards the end of the season. As good as Marcus Howard is another NBA candidate that plays for Marquette. I really do like Murray State in this matchup. Murray State pretty much dominates on offense. They're 9th in points, points per possession. They're really good at forcing turnovers. They're a good shooting team. I think they rank 9th in the country in shooting.
Yeah, they're 9th in scoring, and
yeah,
the
so
shooting accuracy is definitely high. Wow, you do a much better job at convincing me than I do of you.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This will be a battle of all in this game.
What was that you kind of cut out there?
Well, I think it's going to be a really high offensive played game. There's not going to be a lot of defense here. I think Marcus Howard is going to go off from 3. Murray State will give Marquette a run. But I do like Murray State personally in this matchup. I just think that John Morant is going to outduel Marcus Howard and the Golden Eagles in this matchup. I like the upset here.
You know, looking at the stats, and I'm a stats guy, they have the better offense. And there's an argument that they have the better defense. So, yeah, if this is an offensive game, I got to give it to Murray State. All right, let's go Murray State.
All right, so we got Murray State over Marquette.
All right, there's ding,
here.
ding, ding. There's our my little announcement.
Sound the alarm.
Upset.
We can probably throw it in an edit somewhere. But sound the alarm, the upset alarm.
There it is. That's my ding, ding, dings. All right, so next, then, we have Florida State and Vermont. You want to pick an upset here? I'm pretty solid on Florida State.
Yeah, I'm pretty solid on Florida State here, too. Florida State, they've only lost twice, I believe, in the last 2 months, if I'm not mistaken, and that's against North Carolina and Duke, and they were both pretty slim losses. Again, Florida State plays in the ACC. Really strong matchup here. I think Vermont is going to be a tough out. Don't get me wrong. I think Vermont's really good. But in terms of just overall performance, I really like Florida State here. They're just a strong offense. I feel like their team is very deep. They've got a deep bench. Depth is definitely a strength for the Seminoles. I think, and there's not really something that the team necessarily specializes on. I feel like it's just a pretty overall balanced team. And I think that balance and that depth is going to lead them over Vermont, who I'm sure probably has a pretty short bench. So I think that depth is going to tire out Vermont. And, and I think if Florida State starts off strong, kind of starts strong in the second half as well, I feel like they will pull away from the Catamounts in this early round matchup.
Absolutely. That those 7 losses in the ACC for the Seminoles it's misleading because you look at Vermont and you have 6 losses and you go, well, FSU lost more games and they won the same amount of games, so shouldn't it be close? And then you look at the stats, right, and you see Vermont's got, decent points per possession, actually better than Florida State's. But then you realize the conference, and that's really what we're talking about here, is the conference play does come into question here, and Florida State's just seen better teams. They're more poised to make a good run here. So Florida State's pretty easy pick there.
Yeah, so we'll go Florida State.
Yep. Next we got Buffalo, 6 seed, and then the 11 seed. It's another play-in, right? This game.
Yeah, it's between Arizona. No, this game has not happened yet. Happens, I believe, tomorrow, as the time of recording. So it'll happen on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So this is between Arizona State and St. John's. Both really good basketball teams here. Arizona State. I really do like the 11 seed here. I think St. John's is a really talented basketball program. They played really well this season. They've been very impressive. Arizona State, I'm really not super high in the Pac-12. I know Arizona State's projected to win this game for whatever reason on ESPN, but I do like St. John's in that matchup. And I think it's one of those things where we see another one of those Temple Belmont moments.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is exactly like the same scenario we saw in the other 11 seed. That, if I agree with you, Arizona State, I think we're both in agreement. Buffalo probably rolls through Arizona State. Yes,
Buffalo wins through Arizona State. So again,
St. John's is such a good team. I can't believe that ESPN's projecting them to lose.
I know. I'm really looking for that St. John's Arizona State game. I think I think St. John's wins that game and goes on to beat Buffalo. But for right now, ESPN has the projected
so we'll play it safe
win.
And get
so
Buffalo,
we'll play it safe
same
and we'll go
last time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that seems fair. Unfortunately, these are the rules we have to play with. Next, we got the 3 seed Texas Tech against the 14 seed North Kentucky. So, what about this? This seems, am I wrong?
Yeah.
Texas Tech is slam dunk.
Yeah, this is pretty easy in favor of Texas Tech here. Really hard for me to see the Norse over the Red Raiders here. I mean,
they've got the offensive stats, but again,
they do have the offensive stats.
Again, look at the conference.
Yeah, but again, it's conference play.
Where do they play? What, the Horizon?
Yeah. Yes, it's Horizon. Texas Tech has a good defense. I wouldn't really look into their offensive ranks too much. I mean, yeah, the Norse, again, they're playing an easier division, so it's going to be easier to score there. I'm really liking Texas Tech here.
All right. So Texas Tech, pretty easy pick. Nevada and Florida, 7 and 10 seed.
So this is the other interesting game we were talking about.
This is why I hesitated to say that, Syracuse and Baylor was the game to watch, because I think Nevada and Florida here could have, but Florida just had a really impressive game against LSU, right? And that's another reason I think LSU is going to get upset by Yale. And again, we look at this, did the similar games thing that we're talking about, right? Like in situations exactly like this, Florida tends to prevail and Nevada tends to fall, even though, you look 29-4 for Nevada. That's pretty strong. And then we have 15 losses, a lot in the SEC. It's an SEC. It's not the football SEC. Florida was once, a national powerhouse, but they're not considered that way anymore. But I still have to go Florida. Necessarily their offense and defense might not be there statistically, but if you look at how they played recently, how they played on the road, their strength of schedule is far, greater than Nevada's. So I'm pretty solid on Florida, unless you think, I guess we can call this an upset, 10-7.
I don't hate Florida in this matchup. I know they'll be out west, so Florida's obviously going to have to travel. But I think Florida does travel really well. The 15 losses is a little bit concerning for me. I think Nevada is still a really good basketball program. So like I said, I'm more of a Nevada guy in this area, but I think, like I said, you've kind of done a good job of convincing me here. I'll concede here and go for the Florida Gators for our pick. For our specific bracket.
You can do your own personal bracket and have every upset if you want it, but this is the one we're going to do for this podcast because I feel it's fun to do these kind of things. So Florida, there we go, ding ding ding.
Yep. Well,
and then we have this is probably mine and your favorite college basketball team, the Wolverines.
The Michigan Wolverines should be a pretty easy pick here over the Montana Grizzlies. Michigan struggles in this game. They just lost a close game to Michigan State. They played really well, in the Big Ten tournament before losing in the conference final. Going 3-0. Yeah, it hurts going 0-3 against Michigan State. Yeah. But I don't really think that necessarily faces Michigan too much. I think they'll be hungry for a win in the first round, and I think they'll be ready to face off against the Grizzlies.
Yeah, this will be a nice game for them to get back on track, right? Yeah. Like the spread, I think, is at 15 points. I think I'm right.
Yeah. Michigan's a 15-point favorite in this game.
Yeah, so this is pretty easy. Good back on track game. Let Michigan get some confidence after probably losing a little bit. They probably thought they had that game against Michigan State. I thought they did. So that's the West. Let's move to the South.
Yeah, we're moving on to the South. So our first matchup in the South is going to be the Virginia Cavaliers, the Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs.
Is this the upset?
No, this is unfortunately not the upset. We saw Virginia get upset last year by UMBC, another golden retriever, but we're not going to see the Running Bulldog go up against the Cavaliers, I don't think, this year. I think Virginia is stronger than they were last season. I think the loss in the first round last year was a fluke, even though they got absolutely trampled by UMBC by 20 points, I believe, in the first.
And you got to think that Virginia remembers that.
Yeah, I'm sure they remember that. They're saying we're facing a 16 seed again. We're never going to let that happen again. Virginia needs to get out of the first round. If they don't get out of the first round again, they lose 2 years in a row to a 16 seed. I can't see it happening, but if it does, completely embarrassing for their program. And for a Virginia team that's had a strong campaign
exactly
in 2019. So
it's just so easy with these 1-16s. There's like it almost feels like a waste of time to try to make an argument for the 16s, But Virginia's going to run away with that one.
Yeah. But like I said, we saw it last year, but
we did. So I had to ask the question. That's why. But I think we're both pretty confident Virginia's not going to make the same mistake. They're going to take this seriously, and I personally think that let's see how far we get them going in this bracket. But I feel like they're going to make a deep run.
Yep.
Yeah. So next we got Ole Miss and Oklahoma.
Yep. So for me, I'm liking the upset here, the 9 over the 8. Mississippi State, but Ole Miss is not a super strong offensive team. They're pretty strong on free throw shooting, but I don't know. I just really like Oklahoma's defense in this game. I'm a big guy who thinks defense wins championships, especially in basketball. We've seen some of the higher defensive teams play really well in the tournament. So I really like Oklahoma here.
We talked earlier about stats kind of being misleading, right? Like when you have some of those 2 and 15s, you go into those kind of matchups and the stats, may say one way, but then you realize conference. This we have like an SEC and a Big 12 team, and both of these teams I feel have had decently tough-ish schedules, so they're very comparable when it comes to stats. And you're right, Oklahoma kind of runs away with it on defense. And defense does win championships. I know it's March Madness, and what lots of people think guard offensive play kind of wins it, and that may be true. But in this one, I do like the defense from Oklahoma, at least enough to upset Ole Miss in this first round. And I get what you're saying about the Mississippi State thing because I want to call them that every time.
Yeah, but so I don't think we'll be messing it up anymore because Ole Miss is out. We got the Sooners heading to the round of 32.
We'll do a soft ding, ding, ding for that one. And then, so moving on to our next one, we got number 5 Wisconsin and number 12 Oregon. And doesn't part of you want to pick Oregon?
We want to sound the alarms again here. I really.
Oh, so you're on board with me. I don't even have to convince you. I am.
Yep, I'm aboard the Oregon Ducks train right now. Like I said, I did criticize the Pac-12 earlier. I'm not really a huge fan of the Pac-12. I'm definitely more of a Big Ten guy myself, especially. I would think I would favor Wisconsin in this matchup, but I feel like Wisconsin struggled toward the end of the season. I really like Oregon here. Oregon's putting up really good numbers on offense in terms of percentages. And I think Wisconsin plays a better defensive game. I'm a little bit worried about Oregon and turnovers because the Badgers do force a lot of turnovers. But I think it's going to be a defensive battle in this game, but I think that Oregon is going to outrank Wisconsin here. Wisconsin and the Badgers don't really have a chance, even with Ethan Happ playing really good defense this year. I think Oregon has it for me over the Wisconsin Badgers.
Yeah, I was going to say, as Big Ten fans, you would think that that we would pick Wisconsin in this, but you look at the spread; it's a 2-point spread. And you look at all the stats, and really all of this says it's going to be a close game. And then you start to look at Oregon, right? So Wisconsin's a great defensive team, but Oregon ranks 17th in the country in defense, and defensive rebounding is another place where they excel. So, if we're assuming that Oregon has a slight defensive edge, then we look at the offense, and then Oregon is the better offensive team in my opinion. And being Big Ten guys, I think we have seen Wisconsin struggle enough to doubt them. Possibly more so than we should, but that's where I'm at. So I agree with you. Let's do Oregon.
All right, the alarms are sounding, everybody.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, so we got Kansas State and UC Irvine.
I really think it's hard for me to pick UC Irvine in this matchup. Kansas State's defense is just so good. They're going to outrank UC Irvine in offense as well. But Kansas State has one of the best defenses in the country, 8th defense in the country in terms of overall rank. I really don't think free throw shooting will come back to hurt them in this game. I know Kansas State isn't really the best free throw shooting basketball team, but for this early round matchup, I don't really think it'll be too big of a deal. I really like Kansas State and their defense here. I think they completely dominate the 13 seed UC Irvine, not really giving the Anteaters much of a chance. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kansas State is going to run away with that one. So, no need to talk about that any longer.
Right.
No ding ding dings there, and I don't think any ding ding dings here, right? Villanova and St. Mary's.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with Villanova. Kind of been down last year. They did lose a lot of guys, but I still like Villanova in this matchup over St. Mary's. As good as St. Mary's is, they've had a pretty impressive season, but I like Villanova here. Pretty easy pick.
Yeah, Villanova seems pretty easy, so let's go with that in the interest of saving time. Purdue and Old Dominion. I kind of want to pick Old Dominion, but no, Purdue.
I really like Purdue. I mean, I really do like said, but I think the safe pick is to go Purdue. Purdue has played so well. Carson Edwards, has been probably one of the best players in college basketball this year. Another really big, really good player in the Big Ten. I really like Purdue here. And for, as much as I want to pick the upset, I think we got to go Purdue here.
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy. Then we got Cincinnati and Iowa. Cincinnati's been really impressive this year. I got a chance.
They played really well.
They play UCF a few times this season, so I got to see them a lot. They really impressed me, even though they lost a game to UCF at home. But I feel like, and seeing Iowa again in the Big Ten, I feel like I can pretty handily give this to Cincinnati. Am I missing something that should lead me to think Iowa?
I wouldn't really say so. I wouldn't necessarily say it's more of a Cincinnati. I think the Hawkeyes will give the Bearcats a run, but I really do like Cincinnati here in this matchup. As good as Iowa is, Iowa's given a lot of team a run for their money. I think that they're going to give Cincinnati a tough fight, but I think the Bearcats will come up on top.
Okay. Yeah, I got to agree with you there. So this is a pretty easy bracket, I feel like.
And then the final seed or the final game.
This is my favorite team, the Toothpaste.
The Toothpaste Raiders versus the Tennessee Volunteers.
They're the Colgate Raiders. I shouldn't besmirch their name. I'm sorry, Colgate, but it is my favorite. I got it in my bathroom right now, man. I'm gonna go brush up soon.
And I think as much as less than the Volunteers name is, I think that's one of the biggest names in terms of like mascot names. The Volunteers just sounds like a not
the Volunteers definitely have a weak name compared. But then we're talking about toothpaste. But this isn't about names. This is about This is about basketball. And
straying away from
is
names
just
here.
Head and shoulders above Colgate.
Yeah, absolutely. Straying away from names and stuff like that. Guys like Admiral Schofield and stuff like that are big guys for Tennessee. So it's Tennessee's a pretty easy pick here.
All right, so we got our last round of 64 to get through.
Yep.
I guess same thing with 1 and 16 seed, right? North Carolina's going to run over.
North Carolina. North Carolina did struggle against Duke. I think they shot. I want to say, like 7 for 27.
But is Duke Iona?
No, Duke is not Iona.
So
obviously,
there's no debate here.
Yeah, no debate here.
So UNC,
North Carolina.
Yeah. And then we got Utah State, and Washington.
Yeah. I kind of like Utah State here. I think this is the first time we chose. No, this is the second time we chose Syracuse over Baylor. But this will only be the second time we're choosing the 8 over the 9. Pretty 50-50. But I really do like Utah State here. Pretty much dominant over Utah in terms of offensive and defensive stats. I think Utah State's number 1 in defensive rebounds. I'm a little bit worried about turnovers, but I don't really think Washington strong defense. I don't really think they'll be able to take advantage of that much. I think that's one thing they'll have to take advantage of if they choose to, or if they want to win this game. But I think that Utah State will have a pretty good chance over the Huskies here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Utah State, and then Auburn and New Mexico State. This one's interesting.
Ding, 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 ding. I think we might have to ring your
I agree.
Your alarm here,
your
siren
ding,
here.
Ding, 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 ding. It's going off in my head.
I think this is a really big upset
Auburn's good
here. Auburn is a great basketball team. We just saw them in the SEC tournament really manhandle the Tennessee Volunteers. But New Mexico State is one of the most intriguing 12 seeds, or one of the most intriguing teams in general in this tournament. I really like New Mexico State in this matchup. On offense and defense, pretty much outranking Auburn here.
The Aggies are just so good on the boards. That's got to play to their advantage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, you can talk about their strength of conference and stuff like that, but I think New Mexico State has a really big chance to upset the Auburn Tigers here. As much as I do want to pick Auburn, because I'm a pretty big fan of Auburn, I'm going to go with the upset here with New Mexico State.
Yeah, I'm here with you. I think New Mexico State is a good upset pick. Ding, ding, ding. Let's ring that bell. I like it. Then we have Kansas and Northeastern. Is this an upset?
This one I'm not super confident about. I do Kansas here. It's hard for me to pick the upset here. Yeah. Kansas has played really well this season. It's hard for me to pick an upset here. So I'm going to say the Jayhawks take care of business and handle the Northeastern Huskies in the first round.
I agree. Then we got Iowa State and Ohio State. God, I hate to say it, but I think I'm going to pick Ohio State in the upset.
Yeah, I know you said you didn't really want to say it before we started talking about this, but I really just don't like Iowa State.
It's just so hard for me to. It's just so hard for me to get on the side of Ohio State. I know that comes from my Michigan fandom, but it's just I shudder every time I say the name. But looking at the stats, looking at the things here that I see, is Ohio State seems like a good upset pick. And Iowa State, I feel like they're one of the teams that you can kind of count on to make the mistake, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not really trusting Ohio State in recent tournaments. They haven't really proven anything to me. The fact that they're capable of winning in the first round. I think Ohio State has been underwhelming compared to last year. But I think Ohio State always plays really well in March, and I think they escape over Ohio State and get the upset here. We can ring a little bit of a sad siren if we want to, because I know we're not really, yeah, not a really big fan of Ohio State here, but we're going to pick them over Iowa State.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think that's a good pick, even though I'm not happy about it. But all right, let's move on from that because I can't talk about it anymore. Houston and Georgia State. I think we're in agreement. Houston's going to go here, right?
Yeah, I feel like Houston's a pretty easy pick here.
Strong team. Strong team.
Strong Houston team. Really like them.
I think they're one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, really good, strong team.
Yeah. Wofford and Seton Hall?
Yeah, Wofford and Seton Hall. This is an interesting game. I really do like Seton Hall. I really thought about this. My personal bracket, where I'm looking at my personal bracket as what we're going here. I do have Seton Hall over Wofford here in my personal bracket, but part of me really do. I mean, as much as I do want to pick them, I think the safe pick here is Wofford. Wofford is just such an offensive, efficient team. It's been a while since Wofford's been in the tournament, and it's exciting to see them back here. They are incredible from beyond beyond the arc. They're such a good 3-point shooting team, and I feel like that will be.
They're such a good 3-point shooting team, and Seton Hall's not, right?
Yeah, and my issue is the fact that Seton Hall can't really defend the three either. Yeah. I'm a little bit worried about the fact that, I feel like 3-pointer is going to come down in this game. I feel like it's going to be a big factor for this game. I just don't really think, they're going to be able to stop the 3-point attack from the Terriers. So we're going to have to go with Wofford here over Seton Hall.
Yeah, I agree. And then what? This is our last one in the.
Yep, and so we got our last 64. One of we're going on to round of 32 after this. So we have the Kentucky Wildcats and the ABL Christian Cats is the 15 seed. I don't really think it's the two Wildcats here, but honestly, I think we know which one's going to win. It is the Wildcats. More importantly, the Kentucky Wildcats. I think it's pretty easy pick here. I don't really see ABL Christian having any chance against Kentucky. Kentucky's played really well this season. So, we're going Kentucky here.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me on that. And so we're at about the hour mark, and at the risk of boring our listeners, we'll continue into this round of 32 because it will, I think the next time we're going to record, that'll have wrapped up. But do you want to save the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 to kind of pick after we see how things play out?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. We can kind of go through and analyze some of the picks that we may have gotten right and the first,
I think that's
round
a good
of 64.
Idea.
So we'll finish with the round of 32 for you guys, and then we'll pick up after we kind of finished up the round of 64. As we kind of go on, we'll discuss our picks in a later episode.
Yeah, and if you're still with us, we appreciate it because we know an hour's a lot to ask. But we have so based on our picks, we got Duke and UCF matching up in the round of 32 for our first game. I want to pick UCF. I think Taco Fall will present some interesting challenges to a guy like Zion, right? Who a lot of his game is driving. Driving against the 7'6" guy is pretty tough. UCF's a tough defensive team, but as much as my bias is there, I have to pick Duke. Duke is probably the best team in the country. Definitely the best team in the country.
Yeah, we have to put your bias card away for a little bit, and we got to pick the Blue Devils here.
Yeah, let's be realistic. That's gonna happen. Oh, I'm so sad.
So
then we got what's next?
The next matchup is between Virginia Tech and Mississippi State. This is an interesting matchup between a 5 and a 4. I really like Virginia Tech here. It's a safe pick. I don't know. As well as Virginia Tech is, I think, like I said, we've discussed the fact that Virginia Tech possibly could have gotten upset in the first round. But I still really like Virginia Tech here over anything else. It's hard for me to kind of pick them or pick Mississippi State here. Virginia Tech plays, just better percentage on offense and defense, and we're not going all by the numbers. Again, I think that 3-point game will be a big factor for Virginia Tech, so I think we'll go with the Hokies in this one.
Yeah, we did talk about Virginia Tech maybe being an upset candidate, but I think you're right. I think this matchup favors them, and we'll see Virginia Tech moving on to face Duke in the Sweet 16.
All right. And the next one, we have another interesting matchup. We have the Maryland and the Yale Bulls.
I got to sound the alarm. I think
we're going to sound the alarm again.
We talked about Maryland being possibly upset by Temple. We let them go through because we assume they're going to play Belmont. But I think Yale gives them a run for their money and ends up victorious. I see Yale pushing through to the Sweet 16. That's my Cinderella.
Give me the Bulldogs. Give me the Cinderella story. I love it. Give the Yale Bulldogs a ticket. Punch their ticket to the Sweet 16. Let's get it going. I'm really excited for this matchup. I think, giving Yale the win here is I really like that. So we'll go with Yale.
Again, I think it comes down to that offensive mentality that we were talking about. I think Yale's going to find a way to surprise us all and make a run. So I'm cool with picking Yale. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. Sound that alarm. All right.
So then we got Louisville and Michigan State. And as much as I like Louisville in March, I think I like Tom Izzo better. So I got to like Michigan State here.
I really like
State's
Michigan
such a strong team. They come up in the big games. This will definitely be a big game. Two, well-known teams. So I think, right?
Yep, I feel like Michigan State's a pretty safe pick here. Michigan State's played really well this year.
Wait, the former Louisville coach, Rick Pitino, doesn't his son go to Michigan State?
Pitino. No, his son coaches. His son coaches at Minnesota.
Oh, that's what it was.
Richard Pitino's coaches at Minnesota.
So they'll play each other in the they had a chance if Rick Pitino was still around.
Yeah, they would have a chance, but it would be definitely interesting.
Okay, so Michigan State's pretty easy here, right?
Yep, Michigan State here. Yep, I like Michigan State.
Okay, all right. What about Zaga and Syracuse?
This is an interesting matchup. I really do want to pick Syracuse here from the upset, but part of me still wants to go here. I really do kind of like the Bulldogs in this matchup. As much as I want to do the upset again, I think the Orange have a serious candidate to upset Gonzaga, but I feel like we have to go Gonzaga here.
Yeah, I definitely think we have to go Gonzaga here.
All right, so we'll stick with Gonzaga here, stick with our guns. All right, so next game, we have the Murray State Racers versus the Florida State Seminoles. I don't think John Morant gets past the round of 32 as good as he is. We did pick the upset in the first round, but unfortunately, we're going to have to go with the Florida State Seminoles. I think, again, that strength of schedule comes down to it. I think
this is where your Murray State train ends? This is the
last
I think
stop. My Murray State hype train, it does end here. But in terms of John Morant, I'm excited to see him in the NBA. Really excited to watch him play. I'm sure whatever team lands him in the upcoming draft will be very happy. So, but for right now, we have to go with Florida State. More balanced. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then we have the Buffalo and Texas Tech.
Like I said here, I know Buffalo was. Like we said, we've been talking.
Like we said, Buffalo is we picked Buffalo, but we weren't too sure about them. Depending on another one of those cases, right? Like who comes in from the plane.
It was one of those 50-50.
Exactly. Yeah. So Texas Tech, I think, will get through Buffalo pretty handily, right?
Yep, I think that's a safe bet.
And now we got Michigan and Florida, and this game kind of concerns me. I think Michigan makes it out, but
I think Florida's Michigan still does squeak this game out. I don't really think we saw this matchup ball in the last this past year, and Florida did come out on top. But I think Michigan has the upper hand a little bit here. I like Michigan in this matchup a little bit more. I think Florida's train ends here as well. We talked about them upset in the last round over Nevada, but I think we have Michigan going to punching their ticket to the Sweet 16 over Florida.
Yeah, I agree. I grew up watching both teams, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment of where things will head. Virginia and Oklahoma.
Yep. So now we're in the South and the Midwest round of 32. I like Virginia here. I still think that Virginia's a really good. Just their program has played really well this year. I think they're kind of they're looking for a deep run. They're kind of in line for a big run after last year. So here over the season.
Yeah, I think, like we said, Virginia remembers what happened, and pretty safe bet that that they'll get through this one. Oklahoma's a good team, but I don't think good enough to get through the 1 seed Virginia. So yeah, we'll go with Virginia there. Oregon and Kansas State.
I'm going Kansas State here again. I think the set train kind of ends here. I think Kansas State's defense overpowers Oregon a little bit more here. I think the defense of Kansas State's going to be a little bit too much for Oregon's offense, and I think Kansas State will punch their ticket to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think you're right. Kansas State's going to move on. Oregon's good enough to get past Wisco, but I'm not sure that they're good enough to get past this round. So let's go with them, Kansas State.
We're going the Wildcats. All right, so next round, we have the Villanova Wildcats versus the Purdue Boilermakers, and I think, again, we might have to sound our alarm here. I think we're going to go with another upset here. Yeah, I really.
I'm not going to sound it just yet. I need
you don't
think
to
do
so?
A little bit of convincing. Well, Purdue's a 3. We've seen them be great in the Big Ten. I know Nova's good, but what makes you think that they have the edge?
I don't know. I mean, I Nova is just, their offense is just really good. I'm a little bit afraid of Nova's defense. I know they struggle defensively, and Purdue is a really high caliber offensive team. So I think that matchup worries me a little bit there. And it might be tough for me to convince you in this one. I do kind of like Villanova a little bit, but I think just with the way Purdue has played towards the end of the season, but I think you might be right here. I think Purdue, with that weak defense, might get the upper hand on Villanova. So
because
you might have to make a safe play.
We're not going to pretend that Purdue doesn't have its faults, right? Purdue,
yeah,
kind of notoriously, they're not that great at rebounding, right? Defensive, at least. So I can see where you're coming from, and I do like Nova, right? Like I like their tournament play over the past few years, whatever. But I'm not sure I'm ready to go with them. I want to go Purdue.
No, I mean that's a fair assessment. You convinced me otherwise. Sound my alarm and
I did it. I stopped your alarm. I didn't get to ding.
Yeah. Yep. He turned my alarm off.
Sorry.
Hit snooze on that alarm, and and yeah. So we're gonna go with the Purdue Boilermakers.
Who knows? Maybe when we get back to it next week, you can tell me I'm an idiot.
We'll be completely wrong.
Yeah. Let's move on. Cincinnati and Tennessee. I like Cincinnati. I do like
Cincinnati, but I feel
Tennessee.
like Tennessee is the safe pick here. Yeah. So we're gonna go with Tennessee here. The Volunteers will advance to the Sweet 16.
Definitely. North Carolina and Utah State. This seems pretty easy to me. North Carolina.
Definitively, I think North Carolina. Colby White is just so good. North Carolina team is going to be really hard to beat in this tournament. I think North Carolina advances.
Yeah. New Mexico State and Kansas. This one.
Can I break out my alarm now?
I'm here. I'm for it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let's hit it. Boom. Sound the alarm. Let's go. Let's go, Aggies. New Mexico State. Big upset over the Jayhawks here. I'm really excited to see this matchup as well. I think New Mexico State's going to be another one of our Cinderella teams. That 12 seed I'm really liking as a Cinderella. So we're hitting the upset button here, and we are going with the Aggies here. I feel like their offensive ranks, they played really well. Like I said, this team, really good rebounding team.
Really good rebounding team.
Yeah, so I think that the rebounding is going to come up clutch here. As good as Kansas defense is, I think rebounds and second chance opportunities is going to be a really big matchup here for New Mexico State, and that'll be what lifts them over the Jayhawks.
Yeah, it's tough to bet against Kansas, but you look at the evidence, and New Mexico State has been pretty dang good. So I gotta go with you. Ding 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 ding. Let's move them on to the Sweet 16.
Yes, and yeah, we get New Mexico State. They are still dancing, going on to the Sweet 16. All right. So our next matchup is between the 11 seed Ohio State and the Houston Cougars. Again, I think it's a little bit tough for me to go against Houston here. I really like Houston.
I
think
have no
Ohio
problem
State,
picking against Ohio State.
Yeah, I know.
Long live Houston.
We both have no issue here picking Ohio State, or picking over Ohio State and having Houston.
Right.
Yep, exactly. So we'll have Houston advance to the next round. Sorry, Ohio State. Not sorry, but you have exited the tournament in the round of 32.
That's
All right,
right.
and then the next round, I think this is our final matchup, I believe, of the round of 32. We have the Wofford Terriers and the Kentucky Wildcats.
Is Wofford upsetting Kentucky?
There's definitely a good chance. I really think the 3-point game is going to be big here for Wofford. I think this is going to be a heavily offensive team. Wofford will have to be on from 3 in order to win this game. And it worries me a little bit. Like I said, I mean, Kentucky is really good on rebounding as well. I think if Wofford can play strong defensively and can force turnovers, they're pretty good in forcing turnovers on defense. I think that might be the end of Kentucky. But I want to hear kind of your argument here. Where are you leaning here?
I gotta go Kentucky. I mean, I like Wofford. I know you're big on Wofford.
I'm big on Wofford. Yeah, they're kind of a local team. But I think it's the Kentucky Wildcats is a safe pick as much as I do want to go Wofford.
Kentucky just is too strong to bet against, and Wofford is too iffy to bet for. So I got to go Kentucky in here. And it looks like we got a pretty good Sweet 16. And I got to say, let's not go all the way through these. But if you had to make a pick, who do you think wins it all? I got to see a potential Duke and Michigan State matchup. And I got to say Michigan State wins that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good matchups going forward. We've got some interesting matchups that could happen later on. This round of 16 that we have picked here is really an interesting bunch. Like I said, we got some interesting teams. We got Yale and New Mexico State here. Some definitely exciting teams, some upsets going on here in the Sweet 16. So it'll definitely be interesting going forward. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to that Duke Michigan State matchup. I'm also looking forward to that Michigan Texas Tech matchup as well. There's some good matchups going on here in the Sweet 16. You got some good teams clashing here. So, but we'll say that for another episode. So we'll wait for you guys to kind of see how the round of 64, how the round of 32 ends up turning out. And we'll go from there, and we can compare our picks to what actually happened, see what went right, what went wrong, and we'll finish up our picks from the Sweet 16 and go to the championship in the next episode.
Yeah, so this was fun. I think I'm glad we were in agreement for most of them, and I think it was good that you could do a little convincing of me and I could do a little convincing of you. So hopefully, to our readers, if you enjoyed this, let us know. And if you completely disagreed with this and you think we're idiots, let us know that too. Send us in your brackets. We'd love to see, who's smarter than us and why we were wrong. And, March Madness is a great time just to kind of see what everyone thinks about all certain things. So, yeah, we'll be back next week to kind of break down how things played out. We'll do probably like a good comparison to what we did here today, and then we'll go and probably, I think we'll have time to pick throughout the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, we'll finish the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
But we hope you guys, enjoy the round four. And like I said, sound off on us. Send us stuff on Twitter. Tell us we're super smart. Tell us we're the best college basketball analysts on in the country, or tell us that we're complete morons. It doesn't really matter. Tell us your opinions on what you pick. Either really works.
Chase, you want to go through this, and we'll fill out this bracket, yeah, after we get off recording and post it. So
yeah, we'll post our finished bracket on Twitter, so you guys can compare to what we're doing. You guys can see what our picks are. So yeah, we hope you guys join us, and as David and I sort of dance through the March Madness tournament along with these other teams. So
it's
hope you guys come dance with us. Yeah, it's always fun. So my favorite time of the year, love March Madness. But yeah, we appreciate you guys listening this week. Hopefully our picks weren't too bad. We had some good back and forth, and but for the most part, I think we had some pretty good picks here. I think we have a solid group in the Sweet 16. Yeah.
All right, so before we go, Chase, you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Twitter at Chase Sussex. Also, be sure to pay attention to the Hockeytown Rundown Twitter page that I also run. We're posting a new episode of the podcast pretty soon. Jay and I just got finished recording one episode pretty recently, so look out for that. So that's where you guys can find me. Be sure to hit me up on my Twitter to talk about any kind of things you have with March Madness, any tournaments, hot takes, anything you guys have to talk about, be sure to shoot them at me over there.
Yeah, and as always, make sure that you're following our main site's Twitter. That's at Mich Sports Ent. That's at MICH Sports ENT. And if you want to follow me, I tweet a lot. I do a lot of retweets. At David Rosenberg with 2 G's, ROSENBERGG. And then make sure, lastly, that you are following us here at MSE Countdown. That's where you're going to be able to hear this podcast, chime in on, like you said, if we're idiots, if we're geniuses. So make sure you're following that at MSE Countdown. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We know this went a little long, but March Madness will do that to you. So with that, we'll talk to you again after a while.
Peace.